Something strange happens to the human body around age 40. Not to some people, to everyone. You could eat exactly what you ate at 35, exercise the same amount, sleep the same hours, but your body will store fat in a completely different location than it did 5 years earlier. Not more fat, different location. It's not about metabolism slowing down, it's about your body receiving new instructions. Instructions that redirect where every calorie you eat gets stored. And the location it chooses is the worst possible place. This video will answer one question. What biological switch flips at 40 that changes where your body stores fat, and why it's almost impossible to reverse? Here's the pattern that appears across millions of people in their early 40s. A 42-year-old woman steps on the scale. Her weight is exactly the same as 2 years ago, but when she looks in the mirror, her body looks different. Her face, arms, and legs look the same, but her midsection is noticeably thicker. Same weight, different shape. Or this, a 43-year-old man's pants from last year don't fit around the waist. He buys new ones, one size up. 6 months later, those don't fit either. His weight has changed by only 3 pounds. Here's what's actually happening. The human body has a fat storage map. For the first 40 years of life, that map distributes fat across multiple locations. At 40, the map changes, and it prioritizes one location above all others: your abdomen. But here's the part that makes this genuinely disturbing. There are 2 completely different types of belly fat, and the type your body starts storing after 40 is the one you can't see accumulating. Let's establish what most people get wrong about belly fat. Type 1. Subcutaneous fat. This is the soft, pinchable layer just under your skin. You can see it. You can measure it. It's relatively harmless. Type 2. Visceral fat. It wraps around your internal organs, your liver, intestines, pancreas. It's invisible from the outside, but it's growing, and it changes your body shape from the inside out. Here's the critical insight. After 40, your body doesn't just store more fat, it specifically stores more visceral fat, the hidden kind. Think of it like this. Imagine your body as a city deciding where to build new structures. In your 20s and 30s, it builds evenly across all neighborhoods. After 40, it prioritizes one district, the industrial core, right next to the most important infrastructure. That's your abdomen, and it's getting packed with invisible fat that you won't notice until it physically pushes your waistline outward. But this raises the central question of this video. What biological mechanism tells your body to suddenly change its storage priorities at age 40? The answer involves a hormone most people misunderstand. The hormone controlling where fat gets stored is cortisol. Most people know cortisol as the stress hormone. That's partially true. But cortisol does something else that almost nobody knows about. It writes the fat storage map. Here's how it works in your 20s and 30s. Cortisol follows a clean rhythm. It rises sharply in the morning to wake you up, it gradually falls throughout the day, it drops to its lowest point at night to help you sleep. And when cortisol is rhythmic like this, it tells your fat cells, distribute storage evenly across the body. Around age 40, this rhythm breaks down. Cortisol stops following a predictable pattern. It doesn't rise as high in the morning, it doesn't fall as low at night. Instead, it spikes irregularly throughout the day. And these irregular spikes send a very specific instruction to your fat cells. Store fat in the abdomen. Release less from storage. But that's only half the story, because there's a second hormone that determines whether stored fat stays locked away or gets burned. And after 40, your relationship with that hormone changes completely. The second hormone is insulin, and it controls whether fat can be released from storage. Here's the system. When you eat, your blood sugar rises. Your pancreas releases insulin. Insulin's job is to unlock your cells so sugar can enter and get used for energy. In your 20s and 30s, insulin knocks on the door. The cell opens immediately. Sugar enters, blood sugar drops back to normal. Insulin levels fall. And when insulin is low, your fat cells can release stored energy. After 40, the cells start resisting insulin's signal. Think of insulin as a key and your cells as locks. For 40 years, the key fit perfectly. One turn, the lock opens. After 40, the locks change shape. The key still fits, but now you have to jiggle it, turn it twice, apply more force. This is insulin resistance, and it creates a catastrophic problem for fat loss. When your cells resist insulin, your pancreas compensates by producing more insulin. And here's the devastating part. High insulin levels send a direct command to your fat cells. Do not release stored fat. Now you have two hormonal systems working in perfect synchronization. One, cortisol, store more fat in the belly. Two, insulin, don't release any stored fat. You can eat less, you can exercise more, but if these two hormones are elevated and dysregulated, your body will not burn belly fat. It's hormonally locked. But there's still one piece missing from this system, because if it was just cortisol and insulin, you could potentially break the cycle by fixing those two things. But there's a third element, and this one creates a trap that's almost impossible to escape. Here's where the system becomes self-reinforcing. Visceral fat, the fat wrapping around your organs, isn't just sitting there passively. It's metabolically active. It produces its own hormones. One of those hormones? More cortisol. Let that sink in. Irregular cortisol tells your belly to store fat. The belly fat produces more cortisol. The extra cortisol tells the belly to store even more fat. It's a feedback loop. And once this loop activates, cutting calories doesn't stop it. Because you're not fighting your diet, you're fighting a self-reinforcing hormonal system. But it gets worse. Visceral fat also releases inflammatory compounds. These compounds travel through your bloodstream and do something specific. They accelerate muscle loss. And muscle loss creates another devastating feedback loop. Less muscle, worse insulin sensitivity, worse insulin to higher insulin levels, higher insulin to more fat storage, more belly fat, more inflammation, more muscle loss. It's a spiral, and each turn of the spiral makes the next turn faster. This is why people say, I ate the same way in my 40s as I did in my 30s, but my body reacted completely differently. They're right, because the rules changed. The biological instructions changed. But there's one more element that accelerates this entire system, and most people never connect it to belly fat. The final piece of this system is sleep. Around age 40, sleep quality degrades. You wake up once or twice during the night. You don't fall asleep as quickly. You don't sleep as deeply. Most people think this is just getting older. But here's what's actually happening. Poor sleep raises cortisol. High cortisol disrupts sleep. It's another feedback loop. And when you don't sleep well, two things happen. One, your body produces more ghrelin, the hunger hormone, making you crave calorie-dense foods. Two, your cells become more insulin resistant. So poor sleep leads to higher cortisol, more belly fat storage, more belly fat, more inflammation, worse sleep, higher cortisol. The loop closes and tightens. Now we can answer the central question. Why does belly fat become almost impossible to avoid after 40? Because 5 biological systems shift simultaneously. System 1, cortisol dysregulation. Your cortisol rhythm breaks down. Instead of a smooth wave, it becomes irregular spikes, and those spikes tell your belly to store fat. System 2, insulin resistance. Your cells stop responding to insulin efficiently. Your pancreas compensates by producing more insulin. High insulin locks fat in storage. System 3, muscle loss. You lose approximately 3 to 8% of muscle mass per decade after 30. Less muscle equals worse insulin sensitivity, equals higher insulin, equals more belly fat. System 4, sleep degradation. sleep quality drops. Poor sleep raises cortisol and worsens insulin resistance. Both drive belly fat storage. System 5. Visceral fat feedback. The visceral fat itself produces cortisol and inflammatory compounds. It's not just a storage site, it's an active participant making the problem worse. Each system feeds into the others. They create interlocking feedback loops. And here's the crucial insight. This isn't about one thing going wrong. It's about a coordinated biological program activating at a specific age. But why? Why would the body create a system that seems designed to make you gain belly fat? The answer is evolutionary, and it's darkly efficient. For most of human history, humans didn't live much past 40. Those who did were past their reproductive prime. And from a survival perspective, the body's priority shifts. Visceral fat is the most metabolically accessible fat. It's packed around your major organs. It can be mobilized quickly during stress, illness, or famine. Your body stores fat in your belly after 40 because, from an evolutionary standpoint, that's the most efficient place to store emergency energy after reproductive age. Think about it. If you're 45 and you encounter a famine, you don't need fat stored in your thighs for aesthetic symmetry. You need readily accessible energy near your vital organs to keep you alive. Your biology doesn't know you live in a world with abundant food every day, modern medicine extending lifespan, and no famines. It's still running software designed 50,000 years ago, and that software says age 40 plus equals prioritize accessible energy storage equals pack visceral fat around the core. Your body isn't malfunctioning, it's following the exact program it was designed to follow. But this creates a profound psychological problem. For the first 40 years of your life, your body mostly cooperated with your intentions. You wanted to lose weight, you ate less. Weight came off. You wanted to get stronger, you exercised. Muscles grew. The relationship was straightforward. Effort equals result. After 40, that relationship breaks. You eat less, but belly fat doesn't budge. You exercise, but the visceral fat stays locked in place. You try everything that used to work, and nothing delivers the same results. And this creates a profound sense of betrayal. My body isn't working with me anymore. But here's the reframe. Your body is working, just not toward the goals you want. It's working toward the goals its evolutionary programming set. Store accessible energy, prioritize survival systems, prepare for potential scarcity. The frustration isn't a sign you're failing, it's a sign you're experiencing a biological threshold that almost nobody explains clearly. Here's what most health content doesn't say directly. You cannot fully reverse these biological systems through lifestyle alone. You can't make your cortisol rhythm as tight as it was at 25. You can't make your cells as insulin sensitive as they were at 30. You can't prevent muscle loss completely without significant intervention. The biological shifts are real, and they're mostly irreversible. But, and this is critical, you can interrupt the feedback loops. When you understand that cortisol drives the storage signal, you can focus on what regulates cortisol: sleep quality, stress management, meal timing. When you understand that insulin locks fat away, you can focus on what improves insulin sensitivity, maintaining muscle mass, adjusting when and what you eat. When you understand that muscle loss accelerates the spiral, you can prioritize resistance training over endless cardio. The biology isn't reversible, but the trajectory is manageable. And here's the key insight. You can't fight the system by pretending the rules didn't change. You have to work within the new rules. Now, here's the most counterintuitive part of this entire system. Most people assume if I just lose weight, the belly fat will come off. But the research shows something surprising. You can lose total body weight and still accumulate visceral belly fat, because visceral fat responds to hormonal signals more than caloric balance. There are documented cases of people who lost 10 to 15 pounds, but whose visceral fat measurements actually increased during the same period. Same total fat, different distribution, worse health outcome. This is why the bathroom scale becomes misleading after 40. What matters isn't just weight, it's composition. And composition is controlled by hormonal instructions, not just calories in versus calories out. The old equation, eat less, move more, equals lose weight. The new equation after 40, manage hormonal systems, control fat distribution, then adjust calories. Different phase, different rules, different strategy. So why does this all happen around age 40? Why not 30? Why not 50? Because 40 is a biological threshold where multiple systems reach critical tipping points simultaneously. Your cortisol regulation has been slowly degrading since your late 20s. By 40, it crosses the threshold where the rhythm becomes significantly disrupted. Your insulin sensitivity has been declining gradually since your early 30s. By 40, the resistance becomes pronounced enough to elevate baseline insulin levels. Your muscle mass loss has been happening at 3 to 8% per decade since 30. By 40, you've lost enough muscle that your metabolic capacity is noticeably compromised. Your sleep architecture has been changing incrementally. By 40, the degradation affects both cortisol and insulin regulation. It's not one system failing, it's 5 systems reaching critical mass at roughly the same time. And they all converge on one outcome: belly fat accumulation that resists traditional weight loss approaches. This is why 40 feels like a switch flipped, because in a biological sense, it is. Multiple switches, actually, all flipping in sequence. Let's zoom out and see the complete system. At 40, your body implements a new biological program. 1. Cortisol becomes irregular, which prioritizes belly fat storage. 2. Insulin resistance develops, which locks fat in place. 3. Muscle mass declines, which worsens insulin sensitivity. 4. Sleep degrades, which amplifies cortisol and insulin problems. And 5. Visceral fat activates, which creates self-reinforcing loops. Each piece feeds the others. The system becomes self-sustaining. And here's what makes this genuinely difficult. You're not fighting one problem, you're fighting an interconnected network of biological changes that all reinforce each other. This is why the strategies that worked in your 30s stop working in your 40s. You were operating in one biological system, now you're in a different one. The rules changed, the physiology changed, and nobody warned you it was coming. This video answered one question. What biological switch flips at 40 that changes where your body stores fat? The answer, not one switch, 5 simultaneous biological shifts that create interlocking feedback loops, all directing fat to your abdomen in ways that resist traditional weight loss. But this raises a bigger question. If your body changes its fat storage program at 40, what other biological programs are shifting that nobody talks about? What happens to your brain, your sleep, your energy systems, your muscle building capacity? That's what this channel maps, the hidden biological transitions between 30 and 60 that change how your body operates and why almost nobody explains them clearly. If this answered something you've been experiencing but couldn't explain, there are more biological thresholds to explore. You're not imagining it. Your body did change, and now you know exactly why.